Hello fellow book nerds, this is Gabby and let's discuss all the books I read in November. So November was a good reading month. I really enjoyed what I read. I did read 8 books, which is probably on the lower end for me, but I got my first job. I kind of moved locations. Everything took so much time, and yeah, I'm proud of myself actually, because with a full-time job for the first time, I still managed to read 8 books. Alright, very quick interjection. I actually read 10 books. I'm dumb. My spreadsheet didn't update. That's why there's 10 books in this video. And a lot of them were really good actually. I think, yeah, a lot of them were really good. So let's just kick it off and let's talk about what I read. First book was City of Brass by S.A. Chakrabarti. City of Brass, very popular book on BookTube. So I'm so proud of myself for reading it. I feel like the most hype for it was a couple months back when the last book came out. But I'm late, as per usual. I don't know why we're even surprised anymore. It's fine. City of Brass follows a world where there are genies, and these genies have their own town, or city rather, called City of Brass. Devabad. It's called Devabad. So there's this city full of genies called Devabad, and our main character, she's a human, but she has healing powers, and one day, by mistake, she releases this genie, or Deva, because he's a special kind of genie. He releases him from his prison, or whatever he was, and he realizes that she is part genie herself, and he takes her to Devabad because she's not safe living among humans, but having this power. I loved it so much. It was so good. The characters, the world, everything that happened, so complex, so well developed, so well thought out. It's a really long book. I mean, it's like probably over 500 pages, but the author doesn't just fluff about with it. She actually uses it to tell a compelling full story. So I'm excited for the sequel and for the third book in the series, but I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I have way more in-depth thoughts because I read it for a readathon. I read it for the $1,000 readathon, which I vlogged. So all the next 4 books I'm gonna talk about, actually you can like check out that video for very detailed thoughts. Nevertheless, I really liked this. I gave it 5 stars and I would be really happy to continue. Next, for the same vlog, I read The Hunter and the Mage by Caitlin Davies. So this is a second book. It's the sequel to the Raven and the Dove book. I believe that this is a self-published author, and the first book I really enjoyed. The first book is Tristan and Isolde retelling. If you don't know what Tristan and Isolde, it's like an old urban legend almost. Well, like an old legend in the UK. So there was this king who didn't have a hand. So when it came to this tournament for a hand of this princess, he put forth his like nephew or something, and his nephew won, and him and the princess actually met before because she healed him, so they fell in love. And now he's fighting for her hand, but for his ankle. It's all very dramatic. I think like Romeo and Juliet. No, it's actually not like Romeo and Juliet. There's no like rival gangs or anything, but it's kind of like those star-crossed lovers story. I really enjoyed the first book, and the sequel I thought was alright. I didn't dislike it, I didn't like it, I was just fine with it. It was really long, almost 500 pages, so that's really unnecessary because barely anything happened. The 2 main characters we hear from twice in the whole book, and then it's all about the secondary characters, but like, that's not why I'm reading your book. Not for this, unless you have some amazing secondary characters, like Kenji from Shatter Me series. I would read from him for a whole book, but you don't. So I don't really understand why the author felt the need to like sideline the main characters so much that they were barely even in it and they did literally nothing. And the ending was interesting, but besides the ending, barely anything happened. It was really long-winded. I'm gonna continue with the series because I'm curious and I kind of care about the main characters, but I think it was a mistake to sideline them so much and to make this book so long. I don't want this to seem like I'm saying this because it's a self-published author, but I definitely needed some editing and some narrowing down. I just think not every book needs to be 500 pages long. So I gave it 3 stars. Next up, I read The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Ni Vo, And this book is, again, for that $1,000 readathon, and this book is very short novella. I think it's about 112 pages, something like that. But we follow this cleric who uses the they, them pronouns, and this cleric approaches this older woman who used to be a handmaiden to the Empress of Salt and Fortune. This Empress became really famous and made really big impact in the history of the country, so the cleric is trying to get her story for generations to come, and the handmaiden is kind of telling the story of this empress because she was very close to her. It has a lot of LGBTQ rep and has queer love, and I really loved it. It was such a good book. I mean, honestly, it was so short but just so impactful in the themes it discussed, in everything it talked about. I rave about this book in my blog again, but I just want to tell you I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it. I mean, if you want a very short book for your Goodreads goal, just go and read this one. It's gorgeous. There's a sequel coming out that I'm definitely going to pick up. I think the sequel is more like an anthology series, so we're going to follow the cleric as they get stories from different people about different events or something like that. I assume so. But it might not be this particular cleric, it might be some other cleric, I don't know. But the story was wonderful, impactful, very well written. In such short period of time, just so much was accomplished. That's why I said not every book needs to be 500 pages long to be good. But I gave it 4.5 stars and I highly enjoyed it, would really recommend. And the last book I read for the $1,000 readathon was The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. This is her first ever novel in the Poirot, or however you say it. But it's her first ever book in this series following this character, who's probably the most well-known character from her. He's a detective from Belgium, going on cases and discovering things. So like I said, this was the first story, and in this story we follow this very rich family. And one day the mother of the family dies, and it's kind of like whodunit. Yeah, it's a very whodunit. It was good. I don't know if it blew my mind, but I enjoyed while I read it. I think I definitely want to read more of the Poirot stories because this I know is not like the best of hers about him. I gave it 3 stars because I thought it was good, enjoyable mystery, but not like mind-blowing. Now we move on to the second vlog of the month, which was the Believe-a-thon, Readathon vlog. Believe-a-thon, is a readathon hosted by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, and it's all about reading middle grade. So for this, I read 3 middle grades. The first one being Malamander by Thomas Taylor, which I loved so much. Again, it was such a good book. I just filmed a different video where I talk about Malamander, and then I talked about Malamander so much in that video, but let's talk about Malamander again. So we follow this little boy who works at this hotel near the sea, and he's a lost and founder, which means that he works in lost and found office in the hotel. And many years ago there was actually a baby who was found in a hotel without her parents, and she comes back to the hotel when she's 12 and she considers herself a lost thing. So she asks Herbie, the lost and founder, to help her find her parents and find out what happened to them. It's a very whimsical, magical story that I enjoyed so much. I really think it was a solid read. I don't read that much middle grade, but I think this was actually like a really good book that I would highly recommend to everyone. I know that this is a series, so there's already a second book released. I'm probably not going to read it anytime soon, but I'm definitely going to read it eventually. And I think that one's about like a different monster, because Malamander is like a legend, this whole thing. I gave it 4 stars. Probably should bump it up to 5. I was just being cheap. Now another middle grade, but not such a big hit, which was The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. So this story is like a mystery middle grade. We follow the main character when she moves to England to go to a boarding school. This boarding school has secret societies, very mysterious things happening in it. It was alright. It was alright. It was fine. It was okay. It was nothing special. I didn't feel connected to the characters. Wasn't blown away by atmosphere, setting, whatever. I thought it was fine. I gave it 3 stars, and I would really I would recommend it maybe if you're a kid and you want a mystery story. But if you're an adult, probably middle grade is maybe not the place to go for mystery. I prefer a middle grade that are fantasy or very whimsical, and this one was really grounded in reality, so it didn't really scratch that itch of whimsicality. Now let's talk about the last book I read for that readathon, which was A Pinch of Magic by Michelle Harrison. I won 1000% picked up this book because of the gorgeous cover. I mean, you know me. This isn't the first time we interacted. You know, I'm a sucker for a gorgeous cover. And I thought this one was absolutely just stunning cover. The story follows 3 sisters who live in this very small, very miserable town called Sorrow, I think. No, called Torment, and it's on the Isles of Sorrow, and they live like right next to the prison. So it's very miserable, and the middle sister, she is full of adventure. She wants to go off and explore the world, but she finds out that the reason why they can't leave the island is there is a curse upon them, where if they leave the island, they will die within 24 hours or before dusk. I think the story was nice. I think it was well written. I think it was quite whimsical. I really liked the characters, especially the main character. She was really feisty, but I just had such high expectations just because of the cover. So this is the downfall of having like a really good cover. Like sometimes people will imagine in their heads that this is like the next best thing, and it was good, but it was not as good as some of the other books like Malamander I read. But I would still kind of recommend it. I think it's a very lovely story about sisterhood and about loyalty and about heritage. So yeah, I thought it was cute. Wasn't mind blown, but I thought it was cute, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Next book was such a surprise, coming out of nowhere and just like absolutely flooring me with its amazingness, and it was Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. So I actually put this book on hold in my library for like 6 months ago. It took a really long time to come to me, but I knew it would take a while. I didn't really know anything about it. I thought it was a non-fiction, but I knew that it won like loads of awards and stuff, and it's not a non-fiction, it's a fiction book, but it's kind of a collection of short stories, but in a very unique way. So it's all by one author. Each story tells a story of a Black woman and Black woman's experience living in London, America, of various ages, various identities, various sexual preferences. It's just such a very, very, very diverse look at what it means to be a Black woman, what kind of a Black woman there is, showing us that there is no kind of a Black woman. Every woman is really unique, really different. And what's really cool is that each short story connects to the other short stories. So for example, we would be reading, the first one was about Anne, we have her story, and then for example next story would be about her daughter, and then it would be someone from her daughter's life, and or it would be someone we heard like being referenced to, and it's all very connected. So I really enjoyed that part. So actually I was really confused in the beginning, because like I said, I thought it was in a non-fiction about one woman's experience. When we switched, I was really confused, and then I was confused again, and then it was like she, but what? Just don't be confused like me, because you know what you're going into. You're going into a short story collection, each from a different perspective of a different woman, and they're all kind of interconnected. So now you know you're signing up for, so you're not going to be as confused as I was. But I was absolutely blown away. I mean, honestly, all of these characters were just so unique and different, and their experience was completely like different from each other, but they all had some things in common. They all had different cultural aspects. They had different outlook on life. Not all of them were like likable, not all of them were flawless. Some of them I didn't like, and I didn't like what they did, but I completely understood where they were coming from. And I feel like this is a very strong part of this book. So much covered here. There's a transgender character who's technically not a she, so they're they, but everyone else was a woman. Yeah, just the ability of the author to tell the story of so many diverse people, and with completely different experiences, but just do it so well, so masterfully. I was blown away. I would read anything by this author. I don't even know if she has any other books, but I will definitely pick them up, because that was masterfully done. I gave it 5 stars. I read it as an audiobook, and I think it was really, like, it was good to consume it that way. It made them maybe a bit harder, because I'm really bad at remembering names, so sometimes I had the hardest time understanding who we're learning from, but eventually all kind of came together and I understood what was happening. So, you know, just because I'm kind of dumb doesn't mean that it's the book's fault by any means. Alright, we have a penultimate book, which is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. So this I read for my release of the month review. So I'm doing this series where I'm telling you what new releases are coming out the following month, and then you choose one book that I'm going to review at the end of the said month. So the chosen book for November was These Violent Delights. It's a retelling of Romeo and Juliet set in 1920s Shanghai. So it's all about gang wars, love, and there's a mysterious madness going around the country. Yeah. I have my full reviews up by now, hopefully, if I didn't like fail miserably. It should be up by now. So you will be able to see my full thoughts. I loved it. I really liked it. I think I'm giving it 4 or 5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I think the characters, the setting, everything was really immaculate. So I would watch my review for my full spoiler, well, not spoiler less thoughts, but I do. All you need to know is I loved it and you need to watch that video, please. Next up is a book I finished maybe half an hour ago, and it's Punching the Air by E.B. Zaboy. So this is a story written in verse, but I listened to it as an audiobook, and it tells the story of a young black man who was accused of beating up another student, and he was put in juvie. It's a recounting of his time in juvie, his thoughts. He's an artist and he's a poet, so it's all very beautiful. The story is not long at all, so I would really recommend it if you have some time, especially the audiobook. It was told in a really beautiful way. I wouldn't really listen to it when you're sleepy though. I made that mistake because the author's voice is very soothing. Not author's, the narrator's voice is very soothing. So it did put me to sleep. Not because it was boring, but because it was just so lyrical and beautiful. So when you hear it told to you in a very low masculine voice, I mean, you just gotta go to sleep. I mean, it's just beautiful. It was really well done. You kind of understand everything that this kid is going through. You understand more about the injustice and racism of the system, and you really feel for him, and it's not really served to you on a silver platter either, because it is about understanding the nuance and the behind the scenes. And I thought it was a very well done, really interesting, impactful read. I'd probably give it about 4 stars. I think just because verse is not the main way I consume stories, I'm not used to it. I don't think I would enjoy it reading it physically. That's why I read it as an audiobook. And I think it does enhance the story because it's just so melodic and beautiful and poetic. So in that way, it was really gorgeous. I would recommend it if you are a fan of verse and you want to learn more about the racism and the experience of a black American in prison. It was quite a heartbreaking read, but filled with hope as well, and really important. So I was just listening to the author's note for this book, and actually the author said that it was inspired by Yusuf Salom, who's one of the kids who were convicted for the rape of a woman way back when. There is now a documentary about this. Not a documentary, it's a fictionalized account of a real story, so not quite a documentary. And actually the author of this book worked with Yusuf Salom, who was also wrongfully accused, and he spent many years in prison. It's a very sad and touching story. The movie This Is Us or something like that is really good. I would highly recommend it. So yeah, she actually wrote this book with kind of his story and his account of it in mind, and they kind of came up with this character together. So I think that's a very cool added bit to the story, which I didn't read the author's note before I filmed my video. So yeah, if this is something that you're interested in, I think that's very cool. So I highly recommend checking out the Netflix series as well as the book. Alright, that's it from me and my November wrap up. I am losing my voice. This is the 3rd video I recorded. There's a lot of screaming children. There's a playground right next to where I live. Let me know what you read in November, how many books, and what was your favorite. Let me know if you read any of the books I talked about in the comments. But if you could like, comment, subscribe, I would really appreciate it. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!